Live. We've got our regular cadre minus one. Elaine had a commitment elsewhere, so she won't be joining us tonight. But we've got Diane and Eric and Dieter here. So we've got the crew, and we've got a really great interview tonight. This happens to be someone that I met years ago. And he's going to share his story with you, and it's not just your typical, I'm afraid, I don't like to fly and all that, and then he got over it. You're gonna especially for those of you out there who wonder if you can really get to the point where you can achieve it and maybe even like flying, and those of you who are worried about it not lasting. So we're going to talk about that tonight. The first thing we always like to do is welcome anybody who's new to the show. If you are somebody who's afraid to fly, or you're somebody who knows somebody afraid to fly, this is the place for you. And then we always have a number of people. Most of our formerly fearful flyers come back just because they like us and we like them. So you can do that as well. We talk about the industry in general, and we'll do that a little bit down the road. So every Tuesday at 6:30, and so welcome to the show tonight. We also like to shout out to the Birds of a Feather group. It's our private Facebook group. All you have to do is click on that link and tell us you want to join, and we'll let you in. It's up over 700 members now, very active, very supportive of each other, and I'm starting to get a lot of interaction in that. So we want you to join that because it's really personalized, your experience there. Okay. Let me watch my slides so I can monitor this. Sorry, just a little bit of a
in the meantime, hey Tracy, hey Jim, Oliver, it's great to have you guys joining today. Ron, you ready?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the 101. We relaunched the class on a couple Saturdays ago. The Cliff Ticket 101 class. It's live here in Phoenix, where we board a Southwest airplane. We're going to show you how to get on we've got something for everybody now. Finally, we've got an online class, same thing, and we're going to do it the morning after the 101 class. We'll take you through the sign up list on that. Special guest is Gordon Brown, whom I mentioned. We got a couple things in the aviation news update, and we have one question that I picked out of the group there, and we're purposely going to spend more time with Gordon because he's really interesting, and I think you'll get more out of that than you would out of anything that I could say for sure. So, poll question. I'm always curious. This has come up a lot it comes up a lot all the time in my coaching classes, and that is, what was the biggest motivator for seeking help, whether you're flying fearlessly now or not? So what was the biggest thing that got you out of there? And I was just looking at the survey. I'm about to put out a program to those of you who took our Fearless Flight survey. We're up over almost 200 people on that. And one of the things that I noticed is the average person waits more than 10 years before they seek help. So it really is an interesting problem, and one that again, when you listen to Gordon tonight, you're gonna get appreciation for what you can do. Quick shout out for the coaching. I'm getting booked more and more and more. I'd like to bring it on. That's all I can say. The more the merrier. And in a 15-minute free coaching session doesn't hurt. You can talk to anybody that's done one, and it can be very helpful. And I enjoy them, and they seem to get a lot out of it there. So you just use that link that we have. Here's our next class coming up, the 101 class in person. We distinguish them between in person and online now. You can see the next date is June 5th. It's a Saturday night at Sky Harbor Airport. And you can go over here to register for the next available class. We've got them booked out there, a couple of them. And notice the first option you're going to get, if you're not somewhere or going to be in the Phoenix area, you get the option of picking the in-person class, or you can go straight to the online class. So we'll just go to the online class here just to show you, because you know what it'll be for the in-person there. And it takes you right to the Zoom webinar registration page. So it's really easy. you got a place to put in a question there. We want to tailor it to you. That's a big part of the 101 class that we do in Phoenix. And we'd like to get as many people as we can. We'd love to be up against the stop on Zoom. There's a limit on how many people we can get there. We'd love to exceed it and have a reason to go get some more space there. So that's going to be on June 6th. And I have to look in there for 11 o'clock. I think we put down the time. Eric's going to be there. Diane will be there probably if she's not flying. And Dieter will also be there. So what can I say? We want to start serving you better, and doing the 101 class online. I think is the best way. That's what we've done here for since 1987 in the Phoenix area. So come and join us on June 6th or after. And now let's turn it over to our special guest, Gordon Brown. Gordon is he's now the head guy in charge. He's the principal of a school. He was working at the school teaching and coaching when I first met him. And I'll let him tell you how he got hooked up with FearlessFlight, and we'll let him take it from there because he's got some great questions. And if you have some questions for Gordon, don't hesitate to put them in the remarks there. So, hey, welcome, Gordon. Good to have you. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. The thing that always gets me when I talk with somebody like you is how long ago it's been now. I mean, because we were hanging out a lot together, not just the fear of flying and stuff, but we became pretty good friends and stuff. And I was kind of monitoring your career, and you were coaching and doing some really good things for the kids up there. I visited you at the school and all that. And now, holy smoke, it's been we were guessing maybe 8-10 years, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably back to 2013, 14, something like that, where we hooked up when, I was looking for a little bit of help to be able to fly somewhere. And who would have known, right? We hooked up and started chatting about some things, and I kind of was a guinea pig on the biofeedback thing you were doing, which I got to tell you is just amazing. Really, we can get into all of that, but yeah, it was fantastic. So that was the start of a really good friendship, and really something that led me to, the things that I've been able to do since that, and gotten over this fear of flying has just been, it's been a life changer for me. So yeah.
So what was it like? What was that? What was the first? What got you to do something about it? What was the motivator? Since that's our poll question.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I had flown before, but then I just, I suffered with anxiety off and on in my life, but it really manifested in flying and that. And so it got to the point where my fiance and I, she was like, I want to go to England. And I'm like, oh boy, that's going to require flying. So anyway, this really became a big deal to her. And we were going to fly to England, Ireland, and to France 3 weeks. And we have this wonderful trip planned. And I'm like, man, I can't get on a plane. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And so that's when I called Ron, and I'm like, help, need some help. This could be a deal breaker for me. So,
and I just remembered you were working at Starshine when we first met, and that's how, and I didn't know, but you were in the audience, and I was doing some stuff with Starshine, and that's how I remember that's how you figured out to come to the class. So,
that's it. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. That was way back in 2008.
Yeah, I thought it was a long time ago. Yeah.
So that's when we first met and went through. That's how I remembered. So then when I reached out, I was like, oh man. So that was my motivation. It was very important to me, and quite frankly, I couldn't even think about flying to Las Vegas rather than going overseas. So I guess you want me to tell the other part of my story with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, Ron and I started working together, and, going through his program and talking a lot. And one is, you have to be super willing to begin with. You've got to want it, because it's work, and you got to do the work beforehand. And really that's where your win comes. And so I've been working with him and prepping and doing some biofeedback and listening to sounds of the plane. And I'll tell you more about that, how that plays a role, but it's super important that you teach your body the sounds of the plane, the sounds of takeoff, watching outside, and the videos I used, Ron. It was amazing, because eventually that's what really got me to the point where I trained myself so well with the biofeedback and the sounds that if I just put those headphones on I actually became very relaxed and felt safe within that sound because I learned how to relax to them. So those sounds were actually smoothing to me and actually creative. I fall asleep now on the plane. My wife gets pissed at me because she wants me to stay awake and hold her hand, and I'm like out before we take off. It's fantastic, I got to tell you. But anyway, we were working with this, so I'm like, I got to test this because I got to know that I can make it on this plane to go overseas. So I'm like, I volunteered my son. He was about 21 at the time, and I'm like, look, dude, you're going with me to Las Vegas. This was about 3 weeks before we were going to fly to England, and I'm like, I got to know, I got to have a little bit of confidence riding behind me on a short trip. So I said, no matter what I do, do not let me get off this plane.
And just to interrupt real quick, there's a lot of people out there that haven't flown in quite a while. And that's a question they ask me and ask themselves a lot is, would I be better off taking a short flight? And I almost always, I say, if you've got it in your budget to do that, definitely take a short flight. Get yourself, don't put so much pressure on yourself. So
yeah, I would say so, because I knew that, look, I could handle that for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could make that work. And what happens is, like I told him, I said, that the worst part of it in the beginning and the most fear is, oh, that's my beautiful wife right there. Coming in and leaving. So anyway, the worst part of it is that pre-anxiety, right? That fear that as you start to load, you go in there and all the preparation.
Anticipatory anxiety.
Yeah, anticipatory is the worst. If you can kind of work through that and lean in and get past the worst part of it, actually it gets so much better. You're on your way then. So what I told him was like, dude, don't let me get off the plane. No matter what I say or what I do, tackle me. Do not let me get off the plane. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look, you know how I am with flying. Don't let me get off. I need to make this flight. So long story short, I was super anxious. I got panicky when they closed the doors. That's the worst for me. Then it was. But I learned how to really focus on a spot and really use some of the training we worked on. And I just focused and focused. And yeah, it wasn't easy. And, you know, he talked to me and we, you know, talked and back and forth. And we kind of laughed about it. And one of the biggest things I learned with it in Ron, and I know I've worked with some other things with this, is just embrace it and be like, come on, fear, give me everything you've got, take me out. Because I was bound and determined that I'm going to either go while I'm in the plane or, you know, I'm going to go try. And the more I just said, come on, bring it on, you know, that give me more, it actually subsided. And that fear and panic kind of went away. We got up, we leveled out. Of course,
you were telling us before, your son actually had to act out in the role, right?
Yeah, he's like, because I'm like, I got to go. I got to get off here. My eyes were all bugged out like this, you know. It's like, I got to go. And he's like, you can't go. I said, I called him a name and I said, you let me off here right now. And he's like, you're not going. So he held on to, he just grabbed my arm and he's like, come on, man, let's talk. And so
this will date me, but this reminds me of the old Pink Panther movie, the original with Peter Sellers, and he's got what's his name of his assistant. He tells him to practice his sneaking up on him, and you know throughout the movie he comes out of it. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. You got your son trained. No, not now. Keto. Yeah.
Yeah, Cato. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, dude, tackle me, whatever. And so he got, you know, and he's holding on to me and he's like, look, you told me, so lean in, you know, let's go. And so anyway, that was the worst of it. So then we got up, we level out, we get to Vegas, we sit and hang out. Of course, all that adrenaline, now I got to eat because, you know, I'm kind of hungry. So I always say, take some snacks with you initially. It'll help to keep your blood sugar levels up when you get that adrenaline going and help you feel a little bit better. You settle down, make sure you're drinking water. Have something to keep you focused on, and have a buddy if you can goes with you. I know before I got ready to go to England, I called Ron and we talked on the phone for a little bit and just, you know, that reassurance of, yeah, you're good. So anyway, we came back, and on the flight back, and I got to say I was about 70% better already with that. And at that point, I was like, I can do this. Is it going to be uncomfortable initially, but I can do this.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I, we left on our trip, and you know what? 10 flights later, I'm coming back, and I left Charlotte, and then leaving Charlotte, an engine went out.
This is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, God, really?
So you've had 10 flights, right? And you're Charlotte to Phoenix is the last leg.
Yeah, but it was Charlotte to Charlotte.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
So I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, and so this poor girl that's sitting over by the window, she's freaking out, and I'm like, it's okay, it's all good. And you know what? I was a little bit nervous, but you know what? I'd flown so much, and I just leaned into it.
Sure.
And I actually got really comfortable with it, with the training that we did. And we returned, went back to Charlotte. They, 2 hours later, we were on another flight, came home. Yeah, it was, and you know what? Ever since then, I've been back over to Italy. I went to China, spent 3 weeks in China. I flew within China on my own. I was on that flight. Nobody was there. It was like, I was 15 hours up in a plane. Again, I fall asleep. I'm comfortable. If I have any anxiety, I'll actually put my headphones on, Ron. I still have that music.
Yeah.
The Fearful
The harmonizer. Yeah.
Yeah. The harmonizer. I still use that because every time I put that on, it slows everything down. It actually calms me down because I taught myself so well with that for me, it triggers in my body, hey, everything's good.
Yeah.
Because I practiced it so much in being with that the sound of the plane, the harmonizer, everything now triggers and tells my body it's time to relax. And so I use that still, and it's tremendous help because every once in a while I still get a little bit of, I'm like, oh, there it is. Just a little bit of like, hey, that's still around. I get it. But yeah, it doesn't take me long at all. And
the thing that you mentioned that I've really started emphasizing in the last 4 or 5 years is the need to peacefully coexist with your anxiety, because in every other area of your life that, when you're driving a car or you're competing in athletics or something like that, your level of arousal goes up from time to time, and we don't even know it. We don't even notice it. We calm ourselves down, which is the way it's supposed to work. The sympathetic system, is like the accelerator in a car. It amps you up, and the parasympathetic is like the brake. And I tell people, I was telling Sarah, who's I think right now could be on her way to St. Louis from Kansas City. We just did a coaching session yesterday, and I tell her, that one of the things that you need to do is to just get comfortable with that. And I talked about writing with her non-preferred hand, just anything that you can get to acknowledge what's in your brain, because most people don't even realize that you're on autopilot. And people ask me about hypnosis. What do you think about it? And I say, you hypnotize yourself all the time, every day. You don't realize you're talking to yourself all the time using negative terms, often terrifying terms when it comes to flying. And so, it's what you did is really, really
Gordon,
key.
Sorry, Ron, did your wife know about this to the degree that you were wrestling this, or did you have to get this fixed?
And the door is cracked still too. You might want to shut the door there.
Oh shoot! All right, you don't have to admit anything. This is in a court of law.
yeah, she still doesn't know it. So.
Or did the England thing come up on the by the way department, and then you suddenly realize there's very poor train service to England?
Yeah, always beg for forgiveness in the end, right?
Never asked for permission.
Well, you had to do this all, and she didn't know what you had to.
Actually, she did know that I had issues. A little bit. She wasn't. She's like, I'm going whether you go or not. So for me, it was like, I'm going. And that's kind of just, who I am, but everybody can do that. Really. I'm not like any superstar. Sorry, I got to let my dog out.
Okay.
The dog didn't know either. So.
And Gordon's here to tell fearful flyers that the airplanes fly okay on one engine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Positive.
And that was also part of the training, Ron, that you did, that's so important that, you always include when you talk about planes. And one of the things I always remember that we went over in class, remember when I came and helped you do a class at Harbor, you talked about the planes and how they, how they do their loops up and they stay a certain distance from land and while they're over the water, and there's
Right.
always, ability to. So I actually thought of that, and it was very comforting when I was going over to China, because I was watching our arc and I was like, oh yeah, it's just what he talked about. So, I just figured that I would just panic if I had to on the way down, instead of wasting
Sure.
all my energy panicking.
Yeah, if you need to
nervous.
panic, it'll be there when you need it. So
Yeah,
you don't have to. You don't have to
figured
do it
I
ahead
could
of time.
ramp that up and do it at any time. So
Yeah, yeah.
why waste my energy?
Yeah.
I just wasn't gonna allow something so irrational to defeat me. So, I encourage everybody. One is, I even use the techniques, Ron, and I don't even know if you know this, the techniques that we used with the biofeedback. And do you still use that with people?
It's not being used now because there've been so many iterations in the operating systems, iOS and Android, that I couldn't keep up with it. So, but we are gonna revive that down the road. Yeah. But the main thing the thing about that you highlighted, which is really key, are the sights, sounds, and sensations, the simulation in it. So, and I remember you talking about that. What was so key for you was actually having an environment going into your ears that was similar to what you'd experience on the plane, because that's so hard to do, right? I mean, and in the old days when I was still working at the airlines, I could get some people into the sim building, and give them a little tour or something like that. But not anymore. It's virtually impossible. So
yeah, and you know what? The desensitization is the key.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's hard for us to create the surroundings of getting in a plane and flying, whereas I can create the surroundings where I can go and give a bunch of speeches.
Yeah.
And I can become comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Or, another thing for me that's a trigger, just so everybody knows, is going to the dentist was a huge problem as well, because it's kind of the same thing. I don't go very often. I'm kind of vulnerable. I don't have control. And so a lot of these exact same concepts, Ron, that you're using and we talked about, that I still use with my flying, I use with that as well.
Yeah.
Where you kind of have to replace what you think and how you do things with something else. It's hard to just remove anxiety, because when you just try to remove it, there leaves a void.
Yeah, absolutely. And something will fill the void.
Yes,
for sure.
And if you don't fill it with anything, guess what fills it right back in?
Yeah, yeah. Do you notice in other areas of your life your anxiety changing as well?
Oh yeah, with all of that, it's just so much, everything's so much better. When you learn how to really manage that and to move things into those spaces. Yeah. And it's really about redoing the tapes that you play in your mind and filling that in with a different tape.
Yeah. I mean, my sense, and of course I've known you for some time, but my sense is, and Eric and the others can come in this, but I can see the work that you did. I mean, and that's the thing that's hard to impress upon people, when they're trying to get back on the airplane, or it's a miserable experience for them. It's hard for them to believe that. I tell them, just listen to the harmonizer if you don't do anything else. Just listen to the sound effects and just saturate your mind with it. But you put a lot of effort in this. I mean, you were highly motivated, and that's what it takes.
How important it is it to you?
Yeah.
If it's not that important, well then stay home. Don't fly.
Yeah.
Hey, Gordon, I'm just curious, after you had your engine failure in Charlotte and you guys went back out to go again, could you tell that there was a goodly number of people that decided not to get back on the airplane when you left, or was it not noticeable?
Yeah, it wasn't noticeable to me. I really didn't notice. And, my awareness wasn't up anymore. I felt plenty comfortable, because really what I did is, at this point, I've just accepted who I am and what I'm doing, and I accepted flying, and I accepted my anxiety. So it was like,
that's awesome.
Whatever happens, kind of.
Yeah. And one other recollection I have, Gordon, is on the way over, you had an irregularity too, right? You ended up not going to London nonstop. Didn't you? You went into Frankfurt, right?
Yeah. When you ask for something, man, you get it in doses. So I asked to be given opportunity to get over this. Yeah, I got plenty. So we fly to Philly, right? We're in Philly. We're supposed to take off that night, right? Red eye and go ahead and leave. Something happened, problem with the plane. We're down. It's 11 at night. They shuffle us off over to a hotel, the no-tell hotel. It was like, are you kidding me? Then they shuffle us back in the morning. They can't get us hardly set up with a flight. So instead of going into Heathrow, we got to go to Frankfurt now. And so make another stop. And then we're in a delay in Frankfurt. And then we go over to Heathrow. So yeah, I got an extra night there to think about it some more. I got one extra flight in.
You got more frequent flyer miles that way.
Yeah, and I got to kick anxiety's butt all in one fabulous trip.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of to bring this to a close, what bit of wisdom would you impart to somebody who's sitting out there? How will they know when it's okay to fly, to get on the airplane, and even despite the fact that they might not be feeling good about it? How did you know?
I think we talked about this, and we talked about it earlier. It's like, if you expect it to get to the point where it's perfect before you go, then you're going to be waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
What you need to do is like Ron said, you really need to do your work beforehand. You need to listen to those sounds. You need to listen to the harmonizer. You need to practice relaxing and getting a comfortable, relaxed feeling with those sounds. Once I knew is this, when I listened to that enough, I practiced my breathing. I practiced to the point where when I heard plane sounds, when I heard the harmonizer, when I watched the videos, do you do the videos with them as well, where you can see the takeoffs and all that?
Yeah.
That was huge. When you do all of that and you can actually feel your body relax during the music of the harmonizer and the visual part of it, you're ready.
Yeah.
Because what you've done is you've taught your body now to react to the situation you're going to be in, so that even though you have anxiety as you go into the plane, and that you'll quickly, if you'll just play that and stay to it and be within your harmonizer within the moment.
And what you're really doing is you're exercising neuroplasticity in your brain. You are changing the pathways that your neuron impulses are going to cover. And the more you do it, the better it gets. So
and that piece about replacing, I replaced my thoughts with the harmonizer and the sound and the feeling that I get when I'm playing the harmonizer, which is plane sounds, which is plane taking off, which is plane moving. And so what my body thinks now is, when I hear those sounds, and I haven't listened to the harmonizer for quite a long time.
Sure.
When I get in there though, my body, without me having to think about it, relaxes, because it replays now a different tape, which is the harmonizer and all the sounds of the plane. And it now associates plane travel with being relaxed. So
I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. And just to kind of recap, what I remember the most when you got back off that trip, because we're all really invested in you, and you came back to the class and told us how it was. But the fact that just about every fear that any person has, like first of all, my trip doesn't go like I planned. They get another airplane, and then and I think you volunteered to give up your seat to somebody else. And I mean, just you name it, the chaos was there. Going to another destination in Europe after you cross the pond, adding another leg, coming back, and ultimately in the last leg to have an engine that poops out on takeoff. I mean, when I heard that, I just started laughing. I said, man, you've had the whole treatment. So anyway. But thanks, Gordon. I really appreciate it. And
I got the full meal deal, man, for sure.
Yeah, you got your money's worth. So anyway, well, thanks a lot, and best of luck to you, and I hope your career keeps taking off. And
just let me know. I'd love to come on anytime. I just, I'm all about sharing. One, for you people out there, if you're not, learn how to share. Share your experience with others, and don't be afraid to open up and just say, hey, this is what scares me. This is what bothers me, because there's so many people like Ron who are ready to help you and can jump in and help you. But until you express that, then you're not going to get to that own place in your own head. So express that, open up, share your trip, share your ideas, share your fears. And then through all of that, you'll start to be able to replay and put a different tape in your head and listen to that harmonizer and do your work and sit and just immerse yourself in those sounds to the point where you're like, yeah, man, this is heaven for me. This is where I like to be. And you know what? I tricked my whole self to where now when I flew to China, man, I watched movies. I was so relaxed. I was like, oh my gosh. And that was, if you were to tell me I would ever do that in my life, I would have said, Ron, you're crazy.
Right. Well, you could tell you're a gifted teacher, and they say, my favorite saying is, we teach what we most need to learn. And I think you put that to work when you had the engine out or the engine failure there, and actually coach that person through it. And that's what another thing that really works well. If you do your work and learn all that well enough, you'll find out, like a couple of people have shared with me, how they ended up talking other people through it. And when you do that, you've arrived. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Gordon. Any questions
Hey,
from
Gordon. Yeah, there's a lot of love here in the chat for you, because a lot of people can empathize, both having gone through, that transformation that seems so impossible at one point. And then, of course, those that can really resonate with the kind of terror and panic that you did feel and you did have to face, regardless, of all the other things that you learned. But you still have to manage to kind of lean in, as you said, and that's the key. And so lots of cool conversations here on the side going on.
Well, that's cool.
So
I'd love
thank
to
you.
be able to see those too. If you, just anybody out there, and I'm not minimizing the fear, man, mine was, it was real. It was horrible. But I'm here to tell you that you don't give into it. You don't have to. And man, on the other side of it, I still say Ron all the time. I'm like, I try not to praise him too much, or you'll have to get a bigger screen.
Right.
Here, but
Yeah.
but yeah, Ron and I, it was good work. I loved it. And so thank you very much. And if there's any way I can certainly help at any time, I'm all about paying it forward too.
Yeah. Thanks, Gordon. Have a great night, and I really
you.
appreciate you taking time out for us.
All right. Thank you guys.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap this thing up real quick here. We'll get a few words from our resident flight attendant who's on assignment up in the north and west of the United States there. Diane, I put the picture up there that you shared with me today.
Yeah, because there's no way to follow Gordon. Gordon, his story is just awe-inspiring. It really is.
Yeah.
And if you can see this picture, I was flying this morning from Phoenix up to Seattle, up to SeaTac. And this is a photo I took out of my window of Mount Rainier. And just to follow along with Gordon's story, even though that's not what I was going to talk about, this is the sort of thing you can see when you get up there, when you fly, when you embrace, as Gordon said, embrace the fear, your anxiety, you lean into it, as he was talking about. And this is kind of one of the rewards, is you can get to see these magnificent parts of the country. And it is very special. And not only can you get to go visit your family, which is what I'm doing, I'm up here visiting my grandchildren, but you can really get that literal bird's eye view of the world that you don't appreciate when you're on the ground. And so these are the kinds of things that are rewards, for example, in that regard.
Yeah. Flying to me is the phrase that describes it all for me is above it all. And that's what you do when you fly. It's always sunny.
It's always
above
sunny.
it all.
Yeah.
It's always sunny. You always see the sunshine, unless it's night. But yeah,
but then you see the moon.
No matter how cloudy it is on the surface, it's always brighter up above. So thanks, Diane. We got one question that I'd like to talk about. We got a couple the question first. I had somebody that I got from the Birds of a Feather there. Says, good morning all. I'm brand new to the group and have a very basic question. My fear isn't the actual flying, but rather the intense feeling of claustrophobia on a commercial plane. And I know plenty of you have expressed that. That's in the majority for most of you now. Years ago, I had a friend who owned a little Cessna. It was fun flying with him because you could open the side windows and didn't feel trapped inside. Do not try to open the side windows on a Boeing or an airliner, okay? But in the commercial jets, once that door slams behind you, you have no options. Okay, you can listen to the language and get a feel for where this person's at. The extreme anxiety I experienced from this has prevented me from flying for over 30 years. I'm hoping this is the right group to help me learn to deal with this, and thank you for allowing me to join. So just a point of honesty there, Eric, can you always open the window in a Cessna 172? You only got one, first of all, that's openable, and you got to be at the right speed and stuff, right?
You can, and you can open it at high speed, and you can open, and there's certain times in the winter, like in East Overshoe, where you really don't want to open it.
Right.
You pull your arm back in, you'll just be a snowman statue.
Yeah.
But you could, if you so elected to do that.
Yeah. So the thing about a Cessna, because I have people ask me that many times over the years, should I go fly in a Cessna? Yada, yada, yada. Well, some people it's worse because they can see too much. Some people it's better because they can see more, but again, it all boils down to the story that you're telling yourself before you do that. And you can get a sense for this person, bless their hearts, writing in like that. You can get a sense for what their story is. They make a distinction between a Cessna and a big airplane. And it's not about the size or the performance or anything like that, although I'd much rather be in a large airplane in terms of performance, but it's about the story you tell yourself about what you can and cannot do. And you notice that in Gordon's dialogue there, he wasn't talking about the limitations that he was when he first came to the class. He was talking about the way he bridged those and the ability he gathered simply by just brute force, in many regards, listening to the harmonizer over and over and over again. And I tell people, when you do that enough, that you want to reach through those cords, go into your earbuds or your earphones, and you want to wring my neck, then you're getting better, because now you're not thinking about how annoying you are or it is there. So, so I would, there's a lot cheaper ways for sure than going out and renting a light airplane. And I just wanted to share that. So the secret is not in the fact that the airplane is in some way going to put you in jeopardy. It's the fact that you're telling yourself that you're in jeopardy. Okay. This is kind of a lighthearted story about in the news, in our aviation news update. This is a guy, just happened to get this in my news feed, and you can tell he's an acrobatic pilot. Eric knew him right off. I was not familiar with that. I don't hang around in those circles. But what he did was this. First of all, I talked about some of the history and all that, his history, and last year how devastating it was, because he puts on air shows and has a group of people that he flies with, and they were just devastated. But the thing that was interesting, one, the Smithsonian, in the midst of all this dire downness due to COVID, invited him to bring his airplane in, because he's what, number 1, 2, 3, something like that, Eric,
yeah,
in the world.
He's upside down more than many people have been alive and walked the earth. He's like, and his name is Sean D. Tucker, and he's known in the acrobatic world. It's like people say Michael Phelps, and they go, "Oh yeah, he's that swimmer guy, isn't he?" Yeah. He's been doing this forever. Yeah.
And the thing that I put this up here was he bravely talks about how terrified he was to fly as a kid, and his dad taught him to fly, but it was kind of like Gordon, it was like, I'm not going to get out, Dad. I'm going to keep doing this until I get it down. So there's another unusual fearful flyer that got over that. The next story, the last story we had in the news, is about kind of a follow-up to the incident that we talked about a couple weeks ago, I think, about the Utah Jazz, the basketball team that took off, and about 10 minutes into the flight, they had bird strikes, and they ended up turning around and landing there. And well, they're in the news. Hill Air Force Base is just to the north of the Salt Lake Airport out there in that valley. And they've had a number of problems with bird strikes in that area, and it's due to predators out there looking for food. And and in many ways, it reminds me of Sully, because Sully took the birds that were over the garbage dump off the end of the runway and the Northwest up in New York City there, off the end of LaGuardia, and so that becomes a problem, because birds it's like a cafeteria. And so I was joking. I said, if I saw that thing coming at me in the airplane, I'd turn around and go the other way. But probably not fast enough to do that. So, okay, well. Any other comments, Dieter, or anything like that, and we'll close out the class here, or close out the show?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of cool conversation that
Okay.
happened kind of like through Gordon's sharing, and it's interesting because, and I hope Don, I'm not calling you out too much here, but Don's super comfortable and confident with public speaking, right? And the challenge is flying over water between here and Europe, and kind of like being in a big plane versus a little plane, flying over land versus water, right? It's just part of the stories that we tell ourselves that, and for Rebecca, my beloved wife, flying over water, mainly the issue was that in her head, she thought there's nowhere to land. And once you have pointed out the alternate airports that you can go to on your way to Europe, and she started using the harmonizer and started connecting those new the new information with a new experience, just like Gordon was talking about. It became, of course she was anxious going on the plane, but now we fly Thailand and Japan and all over the place, and it's life changing.
So it's about not letting your amygdala hijack your attention, because once that happens, then the biology kicks in and it's pretty much all over. So again, going back to Gordon, you need to, if you have fears about that, you need to learn more about why, first of all, the regulations that require that we comply with, about planning the flight over long distance. And it's just not over water. It's about extended periods of flying where you don't have any airports that like you would normally over the domestic US. So, but those are all learnable things. And that takes care of the mechanical type of triggers that people have, about flying. And the other side of that is the emotional side. And you get that from just training your brain, listening to it, and boring it to tears. I hate to tell you this, but that's really where you got to be ultimately. And you will. You'll fall asleep.
Gordon falls asleep.
Exactly. So
anyway. I wonder why I ended up in Frankfurt. If it was a mechanical, or if there was
no, that when they the next day, because they were one airplane short, the airplane never flew the night before, so now they had to piece together 2 new loads, and they could only, and so they had too many people for one airplane. So some went to London, some went to and he volunteered to go to Frankfurt. So anyway, so. It's funny because we had a thread going into Birds of a Feather just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was Edwin, I can't remember exactly, but he was talking about how American was advising him that his plans of getting on a 787 fell through and all that. And, the only thing that's constant is change. And nowhere is that more prevalent than in the airlines. So anyway, I'd like to thank Dieter and Diane for joining us on her vacation up there. And Eric. And once again to Gordon for coming on and really sharing his experiences. So it's another episode of Fearless Flight Live. We hope you'll come back next week. And until next week, bye-bye and happy landings. We'll see you.
Bye, everybody.
You guys.
Good night.